Good morning from Atlanta. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe. Good evening to those of you in India. And I guess you're in the middle of the night if you're in the far east part of Asia. Welcome to this workshop. We're going to start with a little story, and I'm not going to tell the story. I'm going to tell you about the story, which is what I'll be doing through the workshop. And this is a story that you might be familiar with. It comes from the Jewish tradition. It's often called Herschel of Ostropol and the Sabbath Kaftan. I would be somewhat surprised if there isn't a version of this story in Indian folklore as well in other traditions. But the story says that basically, it's about Herschel of Ostropol, Herschel who comes from the town of Ostropol, who was something of a ne'er-do-well. He would just go from place to place. He was lazy, he begged, and he came to a town where there was a wedding going on, and he decided to knock on the door to try and get in. He thought, why not? And so he knocked on the door, and the servants who came to the door looked at him, and he was all dressed in rags, and they said, we're not letting you into this wedding. You don't belong here. And he happened to have a friend in that town, and so he went to the friend's house and asked if he could borrow a nice garment. And the friend had just gotten a new Sabbath kaftan, and so the friend loaned it to him. And so Herschel put it on, and he came back to the wedding, and he knocked. And when the servants saw this man dressed in this beautiful new kaftan, they welcomed him in. And so he came, and he was given a seat of honor right next to the bride and groom. And as they brought out the food, Herschel took the food and started dumping it on this new Sabbath kaftan. And he just, putting meat and putting sauces and people were just astounded. And finally, someone said, why are you doing this? And he said something to the effect of, well, when I came here in rags, I wasn't allowed in. But when I came here wearing this Sabbath kaftan, I was given a seat of honor. Clearly, it is not I. The food is not being given to me. The food is being given to the Sabbath kaftan. So that is the story. And we're just going to start. And again, I wasn't telling it. I was just telling you about it. But we're going to start by thinking about decisions that were made by characters in this story. And what I'd love for you to do is to just toss in the chat. Now, obviously, we have the major decision that he decides to knock on the door and he decides to put the food on the Sabbath kaftan. But go ahead and put into the chat, what are decisions the characters made in this very simple story? Decisions, and think about all the characters. You have the bride and the groom. Maybe they made some decisions. You have the servants at the door. You have the friend who loaned him the garment. Any decisions that any of the characters made, toss them in the chat. I'm not seeing any. Maybe people aren't coming up with any. That's okay. I'm going to toss out some. Yep, the servants decided to let him in. The host refused him entry. Thank you, David. Thank you, Sweeyan. He decided to put the food on the Sabbath kaftan. He came in, he was lazy, he's always hungry, but he decided not to eat the food. So he decided to use the food to make a point. Yes, his friend decided to help him, and not only to help him, but to give him this brand new Sabbath kaftan. Yeah. Yep. The main character decided not to give up after the first rejection. Yes, you're concerned about the ruining of the friend's kaftan. So the friend may regret his decision, definitely. He decided to borrow it, so he made the decision to go to his friend's house. His friend shared his clothes. Why did his friend share the nice brand new kaftan instead of something better? We don't even know if he explained to the friend why he was going to do it. Bride and groom were happy to have him sit at their table, right? They welcomed this total stranger. And when he was not let in, and he went to get the kaftan. So I did this little exercise just to think that in a fairly simple story where we have just one main character, we don't really have too many other characters talking, but we can broaden it out to think about all of the decisions that were made. And part of what we do is we are actually reversing that process where, we sometimes in stories, we have to suspend our disbelief. We just go along with it. But in this process, we might be thinking about decisions and not suspending our disbelief, but saying, yeah, why did the friend just give him the kaftan? Or why did they sit him right next to the bride and groom? But in stories, we go along with it. But if we're trying to get people to question the decisions, we might be questioning the things that we would otherwise take for granted. So we're going to do this process a little more, but I want to share my screen to give you just some overview of what's going on here this morning, afternoon, evening. And let me get this up in the right place. Oops, that goes there. Oh, and I wanted to say, actually, before I go on with this, I'm wondering if I could get Let me get that out. If I could get maybe one or two of you to agree to be kind of my seconds, like a deputy, someone who's just comfortable with Zoom, and to be my eyes so that if there's something comes up in the chat that I'm missing, you can let me know. Or if someone has their hand up, you could let me know. Is there anyone who'd be willing to do that? Or I will just say, we don't have to have, oh, thank you, Judy. I see you can just, be kind of my deputy in this, to help us run smoothly and make sure everyone can get heard. And also feel free at any point, if something comes up and you want to say something, you can raise your hand, or you can even just unmute. I do have a lot of kind of pieces I want to cover, but we can always stop, and I want to make sure that you feel heard. So on that note, let me go and share this screen. Oops. All right, so are you seeing this? Decisions? Yes, okay. Judy, give me a thumbs up. You seeing this? Good. Okay. So as Eric said, this is called Decisions, using role play to explore decision making. And let's see, is it going to, oh, it's not going to let me. There it is. So here are my objectives in the workshop. And to identify decisions in stories. So we kind of just did that, thinking in a broad way about all the decisions that any of the possible characters might make. And again, to expand our thinking beyond the assumptions and the parameters of the story to enhance critical thinking and relevance. So we might find decisions that characters make that feel relevant to our audiences, to our students, that might even get into some social and emotional learning. And the workshop that, oh my gosh, I'm remembering, was it Mira and Parvati did the other day, got kind of a little in this direction. I don't think they're here. To introduce and model some strategies for using role play with students and audiences. And I hope to show these processes or these ideas with a variety of folklore. Let me see if this will let me move on. So the target audience, which hopefully includes you, is for teachers or educators, for interactive storytellers, because these might be things that you use, interacting with an audience in a more performative storytelling session. If you work with SEL, social and emotional learning, ways that we make decisions can be very valid in thinking about our decisions and how we make them. And even, I'm sure some of this might be useful for therapists. And a little side note, in this session, there aren't going to be full storytellings as I did with the first one. I'm just going to be kind of telling about the stories that we're going to use. And we're not talking about storytelling techniques here, but it's really about using role play. And so my agenda is I'm hoping to get to 5 stories. We'll see how my time management is. Going to start with, well, we started with that Jewish tale of the Sabbath kaftan, and we identified decisions. We're going to move on to something that I assume will be fairly familiar to many people. And I'm using this so we don't have to get deep into a storytelling, Jack and the Beanstalk. And we'll use a strategy with that. And then we'll go into a Nigerian folktale, Why the Sky is Far Away, with another strategy. I'm going to move into a Jataka tale, and I'll talk about that when we get there. And then a Nicaraguan legend. And then hopefully there'll be some time at the end for general discussion and reflection. And as we think about decision making, here are just some ideas. I am not a psychologist. I do not have my doctorate in decision science. These are just some things that came from me as I thought about this topic, and you very well might have other things that you would add to this. But I think some of the ways that we make decisions are based on morality and ethics, what is right and what is wrong. Certainly that decision that Herschel made to put the food on his kaftan was a decision that I think was built around that morality and ethics. He wanted to teach a lesson. There's emotion and instinct. Sometimes we just go along with what we feel in our guts, or we respond in a moment based on emotions. And then there's kind of practicality, rationality, cost-benefit analysis, risk, what makes sense. And then also to realize that the decisions that characters make are sometimes expressed in words. So we make a decision to say something. An example of a very important decision that was just words was, if you're familiar with Shakespeare's play King Lear and what Cordelia says to her father, those are just words, but it puts the whole play in motion. So we have words or actions, and also that a decision might be to act or it might be not to act. So that idea of inaction. That, in that story of Herschel, it said that he kept putting food and no one stopped him. No one reached out and said, no, don't put that food. You're wasting the food. So, there's that decision in there as well. Let me just see. I think we're going to come off of this. And anyone have any questions or comments so far? Brief? Anyone? Anything? Okay, give me a thumbs up if you're following, if it's making sense. Terrific. Okay. So we're going to talk about the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with this story. Jack and the Beanstalk. I figure many are, more a little bit. Okay. Well, basically, and there are different variations on it, so we're not going to quibble about what exactly happens. But the story is that there's a boy named Jack, and he lives with his mother, and they're very poor, and they only have a little bit. They run out of money, and so she tells him to take the cow to the market and sell it. And on the way to the market, he meets a mystical old man who says, "I want to buy the cow, and I have magic seeds or magic beans." And Jack takes the magic beans and he takes them home and he shows them to his mother, and she thinks he's a fool for having given away the cow for these magic beans, and what are they going to do? And but he plants the beans, and a beanstalk grows, and it goes all the way up to the clouds. And he climbs the beanstalk and he comes to a land in the clouds where there's an enormous castle. And he goes in, he kind of creeps into the castle, and it's inhabited by a giant and his wife, and there's a magic harp, a golden harp, and a goose that lays golden eggs, and a bag of gold. And in some versions in a series, he takes each of these and comes back down the mountain. And each time, or he comes back down the beanstalk, but each time the giant comes in and says something like, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, be he alive or be he dead, I'll mash his bones to make my bread." But Jack gets away each time. And the third time he comes up, and the giant sees him and tries to get him, but he gets away, and the giant follows him down the beanstalk, and Jack takes an axe and cuts the beanstalk, and the giant falls to his death. Nod if that kind of follows along with your understanding of the story. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, we don't have to take time. If you want to put some in the chat, hold on. Okay, good. If you want to put something in the chat of some of the interesting decisions that were made, decisions the giant made, decisions his mother made, decisions thank you, David. Decisions that the giant's wife made. Obviously, she made the decision to entrust him with the beans when she probably should have known better by now. He made the decision to sell the beans to the old man. The old man made the decision to offer to buy, or to sell the cow. He made the decision to buy the cow for the beans. The mother made the decision to kind of throw up her hands when he showed her the beans. She didn't say, "Give me those beans." She didn't try to rectify the situation. She didn't say, "I'm going to run into the village and find the men and get our cow back." He made the decision to plant the beans. Obviously, he decides to climb the beanstalk and steal from the giant. So he sees these things and makes the decision to steal them. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, Sarah, he takes a big risk. And what happens in the giant's wife makes a decision in some versions to tell him, "Go away, the giant's going to come, he's going to get you." He makes a decision to return every time. He makes the decision to flee down the beanstalk. The giant makes the decision to follow him. Okay, so we have all these decisions. So what I'd like to do now is to model a strategy that we use in drama and in arts education. I do this in classrooms all the time, called the hot seat, where we put a character in the hot seat. All right. And often in a live situation, we have a chair in the front of the room and someone comes up, and I encourage the student or the participant to, and this is where the drama comes in, to change how they speak, or to change how they're sitting to be the character. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be Jack in the hot seat. And this is where you all come in. I'm going to just trust you to, because this is a chance for everyone to ask Jack a question, for anyone to ask Jack a question. And it can be a question about my decisions in the decision-making process. And this might be where I would talk about the morality or the ethics that played into things, where I might talk about the practicality, my cost risk benefits, where I might talk about how I decided to act or not to act, where I decided I was just going on my gut feelings. Okay, so I am Jack. Hi, everybody. Does anyone have a question for me? If you do, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. And if we have too many people, we'll figure it out. Anyone have a question? Judy, it looks like you went on to unmute.
Yeah, I do.
And then Eric, okay.
In the chat, it says, "Do you have a backup plan for yourself and your mother?" This is in the chat. "And why did you take the risk to trade the cow for beans?"
Well, thank you. Thank you for those questions. The thing is, I know old people are really smart. Okay. And so I decided to take the beans because like our cow is really old and kind of grody looking, and that's why we like didn't even kill the cow, to get the meat, because there wasn't really much meat. And so I thought like there's someone who really wants to buy the cow, because like I've been to the market before and I've seen like really good cows at the market, and I figured like no one's going to want to buy our scraggly old cow. And when this person who was like very old, so I figured very smart, when he came, I just thought, he said they're magic beans, they must be magic beans, and it turns out that they were. So lo and behold, as the old people say, it was a really good decision I made. Okay. And then what was the other one?
Did you have a backup plan for yourself and your mother?
I don't usually have a backup plan, because mom always tells me that I just like, I don't think and I just act. And I guess I go from my gut a lot. And so I don't know, like, well, I guess my backup plan was to go back up and get more gold stuff.
All right, I'm just going to read this until I see a hand up.
Well, Eric had his hand up.
sorry,
Judy,
Eric.
had his hand. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes. Well, how did you feel justified in taking all those things away from the giant's house?
Well, the giant had a lot of stuff, and like we really needed it. And mom has schooled me in some kind of socialist, Marxist ideology, and like to from those who have to those who need kind of stuff. And we just needed, like, we didn't have anything, like after getting rid of that cow, like what do we have? And I thought maybe the beanstalk would give us beans. But when I saw that gold stuff, and he had so much stuff there, and also his wife was like, she didn't tell me not to. So I just thought like maybe we'd borrow it and maybe I could take it back someday, but like,
hey,
like
Jack,
I said,
Jack, if you're such a socialist, why didn't you share your gold with the whole community?
Well, I didn't say I didn't.
Oh, you didn't say you did?
That's a good idea. Thank you, Mr. David. I think I might, because mom and I, well, we just need to buy like stuff. I needed new shoes and mom needed a new dress and stuff. And then maybe if we have extra, or if the goose lays a whole lot of golden eggs, we'll share. Oh, wait, I think I saw one more.
I was going to say, Jack, Jack, though, I don't understand. I mean, I get all the circumstances, but even though the giant wasn't the nicest, he didn't deserve to die. Doesn't that make you feel bad about ending a life?
Well, first of all, he was really big, okay? And it's a beanstalk, okay? He made that decision to climb down the beanstalk to chase me, okay? He didn't call down and say, hey, please bring the stuff back. We could have had a nice conversation about it. And then he was like coming down, he was going to fall on me, or he was going to catch me. And I just figured the best thing to do was to quote unquote cut to the chase. I mean, I was cutting because he was chasing me, and to get rid of, like let him fall down. Also, I wasn't sure if it would hurt him. I thought maybe I was helping him, and then we could have our conversation. Maybe, I don't know. We're going to stop it there. Thank you very much for those questions. I would like to move on to think of the mother. Okay. And I'm wondering, I'm happy to do it, but is there someone who would like to take the hot seat and become the mother? Anyone who would like to take the hot seat? I'm only looking at page 1. Judy, you'd like to take the hot seat?
Yeah, or David. David said he'd take the hot seat.
David,
I think
you
he'd
take
be
the hot
funnier.
seat. I know this is going to be fabulous. Yes. So David, go ahead and
yes.
Just change. Oh, there you go.
I'm not David. I'm Jack's mother.
Okay, Jack's mother. And tell me, Jack's mother, do you have a name? Would you just want to go by Jack's mother?
You can call me Maggie.
Maggie. Oh, very good, Maggie. And Maggie, and let me just see if I can. Oh, no, I can't move you. Okay. Maggie, we have some questions for you. Now, my first question for you, and of course, people, friends, put questions in the chat if you'd like, but I'd like to start. So did you not know Jack's impetuous, behavioral style? And what made you trust him to actually take the cow all the way to the market and sell it for actual money?
Well, I don't trust my son at all to do anything, but I haven't got any choice, have I? It's just me and Jack at home. He's got to learn one day.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have a question for Maggie?
Well, it was the same. How did you entrust your cow with Jack? Okay, it was in the thing. But for me, my question is, once you threw those beans out because you thought they were worthless and you saw the beanstalk go up, what were you thinking?
Well, I was gobsmacked. I mean, there was like a tree growing in our back garden.
So did
And
you
did
think
you-
it was a good thing?
Well, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking, well, I wasn't expecting that. I don't know whether it was a good thing or not.
I see. Now I have a question for you. You're obviously, I assume you're a widow, or maybe
None of your business.
Sorry, but obviously you're raising a son.
It says
and I
here,
don't mean-
weren't you worried when Jack climbed the beanstalk? Why didn't you stop him?
Well, he's a good for nothing anyway. If he climbed the beanstalk, maybe he'll. I mean, I've got no control over what Jack does.
Well, so you're obviously a parent who is a kind of, my child will learn by consequences. You let them do what they need to, and they'll learn by the consequences. But I have a
Whatever
question for
Jack
you.
does, in my opinion, is wrong.
And Maggie-
I'm curious, Maggie, what did you teach your son to do? I mean, how did you educate your son?
Well, that's what he lacks, a good education, because all he does is, he never listens to anyone. In my opinion, he's a good for nothing and he's a lazy child. But one day he might learn something.
Aren't you proud of him this time when he brought back the magic
Well,
beans?
at the end of the story, I mean, I was quite surprised. We're able to live quite handsomely now. We've got a bigger house. We've
Thanks
got
to
a
your
bigger
son,
garden,
right?
and Jack's done well. But it's only now that I realise Jack's got some qualities.
Maggie, I
And
have a
what would
question
those
for you.
qualities be?
Well, he thinks of his old mum. He shares what he's got with me. And, well, I'm not keen on it, but he has taken it upon himself to share some of his ill-gotten goods with those who need it. I'd rather keep it for myself, to be honest.
I have a question, Maggie, and I just want you to know I'm not from the government. I'm not from the Child Protective Services, but being a single mother with a child, I'm wondering, how did you let it get so far that all you had left was one scraggly cow? Are there not social services? And Jack already told us that you are a socialist, that you would have no hesitation asking for help. Why did you not ask for help or seek assistance or aid in some way?
Well, it's the circumstances we live in. I've never heard of handouts from governments or anything like that. It's not the way I was brought up. One has to fend for oneself. And, well, living as we do, hand to mouth, I can't help it if we end up with one scraggly cow. It's no fault of mine.
Well, interesting. Let us give David, that is Maggie, a nice round of applause. Thank you very much, David. Let's see if we try one more. Would someone like to sit in the hot seat as the giant? Anyone?
I'll be the giant,
Okay, thank you, Judy. And so
unless somebody
question-
else wants to be the giant.
Yeah, anyone else want to be the giant? And we had a question. What did you do with the giant once he was dead? Did you bury him? Did you inform his nice wife? Well, we might have to get back to that, but or we can just meditate on that. Yes, thank you, Moira.
I think
now we have
Rachel wanted to be the giant.
Rachel, you going to be the giant?
I think I can be the giant.
Wonderful. Rachel, I'm going to ask you to, well, if you're not, if you look very comfortable, but if you wanted to, you could bring your camera closer to yourself so you can make your face nice and big in your frame because you're a giant. Yeah, then you're bigger than all of us. Good. All right. Questions for the giant. Anyone have a question for the giant? And thank you so much, Judy, for your help.
I want to ask, Giant, did you ever attend any school? Like, do you have giant schools up there?
Giants don't need schools. We get everything we need because we're so strong. We can just take it.
Where did you get that goose that laid the golden egg and the golden harp and all the gold? Where did you get that from?
That's none of your business. The important thing is that I have it.
Well, I would question that. Yeah, someone, Shukrita said, how did you get all that wealth? I mean, it's kind of relevant here because we're trying to, understand the whole situation.
I belong to a society of giants. And we go and plunder and we take what we need. We also invoke magic.
Vina
So
has
do
a
you-
question. Do you think that big is might always? Or Vina, do you mean like does might make right if you're the strongest always prevails?
Well, you can see how Jack acts. I have to be mighty and I have to use force because everybody else is going to try to take things away from me.
So how
Why
do
do you eat? Why do you eat people?
They're tasty.
and how
We
do
had a
you feel
question.
about your wife? How do you feel about your wife? Is she any worth? Is she equal with you?
She's fine. She has her place and I have mine.
Did you feel
Oh, it's-
betrayed by your wife?
Takes
She
time.
helped
Takes
Jack.
time.
Wait. Do you feel betrayed by your wife, Giant? Yes. I see you're thinking about it. All right.
No, I
I-
was nodding my head.
Oh, nodding. Someone asked, do you pay your taxes?
What taxes?
Oh,
Ah.
you don't have taxes. And Manisha would like to join that society. Manisha's mother says that Giant is not, that you're not strong because of size, but because of your inner strength. And Manisha has a lot of inner strength. Can she join that Giant society?
No, she wasn't born into our society. It's a closed society. We don't need more members.
And I'll tell you what, we're going to stop it right there. Let's give Rachel some applause. Thank you so much, Rachel. Wonderful. I love that, as we started doing this process, the questions started tumbling out, right? Which is wonderful. In terms of educators, one of the things to know about this hot seat strategy is it's a way to, in terms of assessment or to assess the student who is playing the role, but it's also a way to assess the rest of the group. We look at what kind of questions are coming up, what kind of divergent thinking people are doing. To ask this Giant if you pay taxes, just some wonderful questions to think about giving, sharing with the community. And what we basically did is we took this story that many of us know well, and we broadened it out. We gave it more dimensions through the role play. And we thought about a lot of different issues that aren't necessarily intrinsic to the story, but that can come in as we explore and kind of think analytically and critically about the issues. So I'd like to just open it up. Any
Barry?
comments? Yeah.
I was sort of surprised at how, in a way, misogynistic I was as the Giant, and how, and old-fashioned, patriarchal. I didn't go anywhere very creative. Like, part
You
of
were
me said,
fine.
oh, well, I could have given you a wonderful spiel about how I got this golden egg and the golden goose or whatever, but I was very defensive. And it was like, I was going to give you quick answers. And David, I learned from you when you said it was none of your business, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have said that, but it really did fit my character. So once I decided to take this mean, nasty character, I just played into it, or defensive character. But I was very aware that that seems to be the opposite of what I would have wanted to write if I was writing a fable or something. It would have been beautiful and I would have included, the new member and such. So it was just sort of knee-jerk, lower brain reactions. And it was very, very quick and don't bother me.
Yeah, it's fine. And, one thought about this is that basically in terms of drama, we're doing something called improvisation. We don't have a script. We're asking students to think off the top of their head, and they will go where they go. And as an educator, one of my goals is to just honor whatever they come up with, unless it's way out of left field or totally inappropriate. That their interpretation of the character is fine, and we kind of work with it. And that's the fun thing about improvisation. But that gets back to that point I made about how we have to let go of our assumptions about this story. This is not literary analysis. It's not that process of who are the characters, what happened next, what happened next. You know, it is a little bit of identifying motives and objectives of a character, but it's, you know, we're broadening it outward. You know, there's nothing in the story that says that Jack's mother is socialist, you know, Marxist, but I brought that in. I hadn't thought of that before. So thank you, Rachel, for that. Anyone have any
Can
other
I also
comments?
say,
Yes.
I loved it when someone said, why did you, when you said, why did I eat humans? They're tasty. It was like, oh, this was a lot of fun. And thank you. So I don't have to, I had fun with it, and I'll allow myself for that character. It really did work.
Yes,
Barry,
David,
it's following on from what Rachel just said, really, because I've done hot seating with literary characters and with theatre. And then you've got, often in theatre, looking at Shakespeare, you mentioned, you've got more complex characters where there's a lot of room and scope for imagining and quite complex characteristics. With folk tales, I mean, Jack's mum and the giant, they're such simple, you know, not even two-dimensional characters that they're, you know, you would be changing the nature of the folk tale to make them more complex, really. So I like Rachel, I had a very instinctive reaction from within the folk tale two-dimensional character.
And let me ask you, David, is that an issue? Do you have a problem with that?
No, not at all. I love that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting comparing hot seating in this context with hot seating with a literary character.
And then I don't know if you do this, David, but I do something I haven't seen it elsewhere, just that I call a hot panel, where we could have Jack and his mother and the giant. So I put 3 seats and I call that a hot panel, and we can ask questions of all of them and even sometimes engage them in conversation with each other outside the temporal context of the story. So we're not saying it's after the giant died or it's before, you know, it's not at a particular moment of the story. It's just the characters kind of as they exist. Any other thoughts or comments about that strategy? Rachel, go ahead.
Well, I would, in my mind, I could see Jack saying to his mother, "You never trust me, and you never believed in me," and also, but it just washed off my back. You know, I'm who I am. I do things the way I do, and so what?
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
I think Krita has a.
Krita, thank you.
Yes, hi Barry.
Yes, hi.
Barry, actually, I was thinking, what if we also got the beanstalk to say something, you know, with Jack and the giant going up and down? I'm sure the beanstalk has a story.
And I would say, fine, in the context of this workshop, I would question that only because does the beanstalk make any decisions? But only because we frame this as thinking about decisions and how characters make decisions.
Right.
But assigning characters to inanimate objects and parts of stories, you know, gives us alternate viewpoints is wonderful. Gustavo.
Maybe the mother said your father was like that. So what can I do?
Totally. Yes. Do we have anyone else?
I don't see anyone else.
And I'm not looking at the second page, but obviously, if you have your hand up and we're not calling on you, feel free to just unmute and jump in. Okay, then we're going to move on. So that's kind of hot seat with that folktale. We're going to go on to another story. This was the third one, and this is a Nigerian folktale from the Bini people of Nigeria. And again, I'm not going to tell the story. I'm just going to tell you about the story. It's called "Why the Sky is Far Away," and it says that in this kingdom where there was a king named Oba, the sky was low, and people were able to just reach up, and the sky was food. And so when people were hungry, they could just reach up, grab a piece of the sky. They could shape it into whatever they wanted it to be, a pineapple or a mango or, you know, a lamb chop or whatever, Cheetos, maybe, you know, yogurt, and then they could eat it. And life was really good. But occasionally people were a little bit wasteful. And one day the sky itself thundered and said to Oba, the king, said, "Your people are wasting some of this food. Do not let that happen." And so Oba sent messengers all throughout the kingdom and told people, you must not waste food. Only take what you need what you can actually eat, and do not waste food, otherwise it will not bode well for the kingdom. And so the people, they adjusted, and they were very careful not to take extra food. But there was a woman named Adese, and Adese, she was the type of person who was never easily satisfied. But she tried to follow along, and the week came when it was the week to celebrate Oba, the great king. And so it was a week of festivals, and there were parties, and there was dancing, and there was music, and there was plenty of food. The king's court had all grabbed food, and they shaped it into the most beautiful things, and it was a fancy banquet. And Adese and her family, her husband Otolo and their children were there, and they ate their fill. And then on the last night, when things were winding down, Adese was just thinking about all the wonderful food, and she thought, oh, that tasted so good, and that tasted so good. And she decided she wanted to have another taste of some of those things. So she reached up and grabbed a nice big chunk and started shaping it into little bits. But as she ate, she realized that she was full. And she didn't know what to do because she had this chunk, and it was going to be a problem. So she called her husband Otolo, and she explained to him, and he tried to eat some of it, but he was full. Then she got their children to come, and they tried to eat, but they were full. And then they got the neighbors to come, and they got the neighbors to get their neighbors to come, but there was still a big chunk. And she felt really bad about this because she knew she shouldn't have taken it. And so she took it and she buried it in her yard. But the next morning, the sky knew, and the sky thundered, and the sky said to Oba, that woman took too much food. It is wasted. From now on, you will not have the benefit of our bounty. And the sky then lifted up higher and higher and higher, and the people were not able to reach up and get food. And after that, the sky released seeds, and the people had to plant their food. They had to harvest it. They had to sow the seeds and all that. And that was the beginning of agriculture. And ever since then, we have had agriculture. So there is the story of why the sun is far away in a brief telling. So what I'd like to kind of model next is the idea of an internal debate. So this would be something where a character is at a point of decision, and we give voice to kind of the angel and the devil on the shoulder, or just the two alternating voices on the shoulder. So Eric, go ahead and unpin me if you would. And I'm wondering, and I was hoping I could be able, Eric, you might be able to do this, but what I'd love to do is I'm going to be Adese, unless someone, well, is there someone who would like to be Adese? We're going to get Adese, and then we're going to get a voice saying, you're still hungry, you want to taste that food, just grab a little bit, it'll be fine. And another voice saying, you're full, don't do it, okay? So is there anyone who'd like to volunteer for any of those roles? Anyone who'd like to volunteer for any of those roles? Judy will do one. Judy, what would you like to do?
I want to be the one that says, don't do it.
Okay, great. Anyone else? I will be Adese, and it's, yeah, Vina, would you be the voice? The voice of hunger, the voice of impulse.
I will try. I'm not as good as fast talk like all the others,
no,
but I'll try.
Take your
Slow
time.
And steady.
And Eric, I am not able to move windows. It says I'm following your order. Are you able to move windows so you can put me in the middle and Judy on one side of me and Vina on the other? Yeah, right, like that. Now, I want to try, this is a little Zoom thing that I want to try. Vina, would you look to your right?
That means I look to the left.
No, I want you to look to your right, because you know what? It tricks you. I know you look like you're looking away from me, because remember, your image is mirrored, okay? And if I look like this, am I looking at you? Everyone, am I looking at Vina?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then Judy, would you look to your left? No, look the other way. And does, folks, does it look like Judy's looking at me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're just going to play with this Zoom so we can actually dramatize it a little bit. So I have to remember, when I'm looking at Vina, I look that way. When I'm looking at Judy, I look that way. And it's just counterintuitive for us because our images are mirrored. I'm going to look and see, actually, the three of us might be able to go into our video settings and unmirror our, let me just look and see.
Oh, yeah, I can. I did.
Yeah. Where is that, Judy?
You go into video, and then you go into video settings, that little arrow on the side, and then under camera, it says my video, and it says mirror my video, and you can unclick it.
Ah, there it is. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, great. Can you do it? Vina, did you find it as well?
Yes, so mirror my video or don't mirror my video?
No, unclick.
Uncheck it.
All right.
Okay.
And
So
now
now,
you look the way you
am
would
I
think.
looking at Vina?
No.
No,
No.
you're looking at me.
And now, oh gosh. Okay. You know what? I think I still have to. I think we still have to do the other thing. It's just now for ourselves. Anyway. Okay, here we go. And you can each jump in at any point, okay, to be the voices inside. And I am Adese, and you can change your voice or change your body, change your poise to kind of reflect with the attitude that you have here. Oh, this was so much fun. Oh, I'm so proud to be in this kingdom with Oba. What a great leader. Oh, and that was so delicious. The pastries. Oh, and the candied yams were wonderful, and the breadfruit. Oh, I am so full, but I would just love a little bit more.
No.
Barry. Oh, sorry, Adesi. No.
No,
why not?
No, you're not
Oh,
going to
wait a
eat
second.
anymore.
Wait a minute.
Vina.
Do you want me to be the other one then?
Vina,
I
you
thought-
were going to be the one saying, grab it, get it.
No, I thought it was that was Judy.
All right,
I'm
I'll
sorry.
change. It's okay.
Judy
I don't
will do
want
that.
I'll change.
So go ahead, Vina, with what you were doing. What?
All right.
What?
No. I don't think you need any more, Adesi.
Just a little bit more. Just a little
You've
bit.
had your fill.
Think of how lovely it
That
tasted.
be taking everybody else's food.
It just,
I know it's tasty.
If you just reach up. and
I
it's
know
so
it's
good in your
tasty,
grasp,
and I know
you
it's
can
so
feel
wonderful,
that
and I know you're getting
feeling.
it free.
Lovely.
Just
wait,
because you're
wait.
getting it free doesn't mean that you can eat as much
to
as
have
you want.
Wait, just listen. I just want a little
Well,
bit.
you can
I
never have
wouldn't
enough
take-
of a good
But
thing.
you've already eaten. You've already eaten for three
I
people.
know I have.
You've eaten for
I
five
know I've
people
already
now.
eaten. Wait, can we just
Lovely.
discuss this a little? I know I've already eaten, but I just want a little more. Wouldn't that be okay?
Yes. Have a little more. Have a little more.
Well,
yes.
philosophically, certainly not okay.
Why
Wait,
philosophically?
Don't listen.
You need
What
to
do they
learn to
know?
your conscience.
Wait.
know your
Can you?
taste.
You
Wait,
need to listen to
voice.
your conscience.
Yes,
What does your
conscience.
conscience say?
Remember,
Better?
Conscience, I want to
Better?
listen to you. Wait, voice, it's saying yes. Can you just let me listen to my conscience for a second?
Well,
Okay.
I don't know because I really want something and you're just gonna go and listen and that's wrong.
Well, just let me listen to her for a second. Yeah, conscience, what are you saying philosophically?
Yep. Haven't you eaten for one person? You've eaten for 10 people now. Should
Well,
you be eating that much? No.
but-
Do you
but the
need that
thing is-
much? Is it greed or is it need?
It's need, and the food is there. The sky is very generous with it, and I just take a little bit. I just have a little itch for taste in my mouth that I want a little bit more.
Do some mindful eating
Remember-
now. Do
Just
some
remember,
mindful.
Wait.
Just a little more. Come on, you can have a little more, can't you?
Oh, I love it when you talk to me like that. You're right. I can have a little more. Yeah.
Well, listen, what do they know? In the past, there's never been a consequence, right?
Let's stop it right there. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Gets a little chaotic, but that's fun and that's fine, and we can manage that. So that is just an example of having an internal debate. And I've done that where I put students in groups of 3 and they get really active with it. You know, sometimes with our drama activities and when we're using role play with a hot seat, it's generally something where someone's in front of the class and it's a whole class activity. And that does add in a little of the performative anxiety because someone is kind of performing. With that internal debate, that's something where, you know, everyone can do it on their own. And then we come back together and talk about what came up in your debate, what came up in yours, what did your yes voice say, what did your no voice say? Did the character make a decision? We know in the story she makes the decision to get the food, but in your improvisation, in your role play, did they make a different decision? Anyone have any thoughts or observations or questions about that? And I'm going to just check and see if anyone wrote anything. Oh, Conscience Alley. Yep. And David, I know you're immersed, you know, probably even more so than I am in some of these drama strategies and Dorothy Heathcote and Cecily, I can't remember her last name, but you know who I'm talking about. But yeah. Oh, reminds me of when I asked for advice on Facebook. Yes, yes. Oh, and Manisha, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought about trying the spotlight. I wasn't sure if that was going to work or not, but thank you for that. Okay. And I'm looking at Bruce. Thank you. I'm not sure. I'm not going to try that, Bruce, but thanks for that. Maybe I'd be able to do that if I had more time. Talk about a 49 array, but we're going to go on. Any thoughts or observations about using that strategy for looking at decisions?
I like the fact that, I mean, you did take the main character, but what about if you took the sky, how that would get people to see what it was like for the sky, right? Because you would have the struggle that the sky would have, which was, well, do I punish them? Well, I didn't punish them and they did try and all those things, but ultimately, is there a consequence or not?
Yeah, you know what? Let's try that, Judy. Let's try that. Is there someone who'd like to be the sky? Anyone? I'm happy to do it, but we would need voices. Okay, Rachel, you want to be the sky? Okay. And is there someone who would like to be the sky's inner voice? Maybe we'll call it Cloud One, saying the people are being greedy. You must not, you must preserve. Yeah, Aparna, you'll do that?
Yeah.
Great. And is there someone who will be the inner voice, or we'll call it Cloud Two, saying, okay, Ramya, did I say correctly?
Yes.
Ramya?
Yes.
Great. And I don't know if I can do it. Let me see. I am a host. Let me see if I can. How would I do this? If I spotlight Rachel, I don't know if I can then spotlight others. I'm going to try this.
You can add spotlight.
Oh,
There's
add
something
spotlight.
called as add spotlight, and you can add to all three of us would be in a line.
Thank you. I'm looking for you now because I have to go on the. And Eric, if you can find them in spotlight, who was the second one? I'm not finding you all.
Aparna, she's at the bottom, or at least on my screen, she's at the bottom.
Right, but I don't have my array anymore because I have the spotlight.
Okay. I have them as.
Oh, Aparna. Let me see if I can add Aparna. Add spotlight. Okay. And who was our third one?
Ramya.
Ramya. You see, I'm not finding you, Ramya.
I'm trying to wave my hand and I'm trying to talk.
There you are. There you are. Thank you. Let me see if I can do this. Add spotlight. There we go. Okay, thank you very much.
While we're doing that, can we ask Kathleen to please mute and stay muted? We're getting some extraneous noise from you, and it may be that every time you're hitting the space bar, it is unmuting you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, so Rachel, you are the sky, and Aparna, you are the voice saying, you are the kind of the voice of take it away from them. They're not, okay? And Ramya, you are the voice of bounty and sharing and give them another chance. And it was just one woman and that sort of thing. Okay, go ahead. Rachel, you're going to start by, you're at this point of decision making. You have made it clear to Oba and all the people down below that they are only to take as much food as they need. And then there's this woman who brazenly grabbed a big chunk of the sky after she had, as we heard before, eaten enough for 10 people. And you are trying to decide, are you going to enforce the law that you say, that you proclaimed? Go ahead, Rachel, can you start?
Even before you start, let me tell you, you've got to get them to stop. Enough.
I know, you're right.
No,
Right?
no.
Exactly.
Have patience. It was just one lady.
Patience?
You
Did you
guys
not
are
show patience for
overreacting.
so long? How much of patience? You've heard of give an inch and they'll take a mile, haven't
And
you?
friends, I'm going to stop you for a second. You're doing wonderfully. I would like to encourage you now to just let each person have their say before you come in. Okay. And this is what we do in improvisation. Make sure that we take turns, make it like real conversation. Otherwise, it gets a little crowded, but you're doing great. Yeah. So go ahead, Ramya, why don't you finish what you were saying?
Take it easy, Sky. Just look at you. You're so big. You have a big heart. It's just one lady. So you're overreacting. Give them another chance, Sky. Be magnanimous.
Magnanimous, my foot. You've given everything you have, and for how long? Are you mad? There's a time when you stop, and this is the finish line. They have broken all the things that you've been asking them. Man's greed is never going to stop. Did you not see her? She was full, her belly was fat, burst, and in spite of that, she took more and more and more. It's never going to stop. You have to put an end to it now.
I'm going to stop for a second. When you come to a place like this, feel free to ask each other questions, and that might spark further conversation. Rachel, do you want to say anything as the Sky? You've heard both sides.
How much can I take? I have tried to be magnanimous. I have been magnanimous. I have shared everything. I am endless good, but still I have feelings and I have to be respected. And this woman disrespected me. Why didn't she come to me and say, I made a mistake. Could you forgive me? Why didn't she?
I totally agree. Tell me, have you not seen them overeat? Don't you think man and women and children are becoming fat just because they're eating more than they should? Don't you think so?
I hear you. But look, you're so close to the people now. What are you going to do? You will go far away. You're going to miss the people, Sky. You love them. You're so giving. That is what is you. Do you want to lose being you?
But they're taking advantage of me. They're tearing into my flesh. I tried to give them from my bounty, but now they're actually taking from my core. And they don't learn my lessons and they don't share and they're not, well, that's not true. The mother did try to share, but she tried to force everybody to eat more, to be like her.
Why didn't she think before she took that piece away from you? A little piece of you is gone, and how many times will you give it away? You're right. You should stop now. I'll tell you, I think no matter where you are, you're endless. You're still going to be able to see them. But let's just take that food away. They're wasting their lives. They don't do anything to earn their food. I think they must. What do you say?
We're going to wrap it up. Ramya, you get the last word. Ramya, go ahead.
Don't listen to her, Sky. That is because you were so tasty. That's because you allowed them to just take you and shape them into anything. You made them be creative. You made them so happy. You're so giving. Stay with them, Sky. Don't go far away. Please keep giving.
Thank you very much. Please give them all a nice round of applause. Wonderful. I loved it, Rachel, when you got into that feeling realm, right? I have feelings too, which got back to that, like, how are decisions made? The Sky wasn't talking about, it could have gone to a decision of, well, I've calculated, I have 55 billion tons and she took, 35 pounds, but that puts me, below the margin that I had set for myself. And I just can't really take the chance. But you were like, I have feelings, so very, very nice. Anyone have any other comments? Thank you, Judy, for that suggestion of looking at another character. Go ahead, Rachel.
I also wanted to say that perhaps I was wrong to begin with. I spoiled them and I didn't set limits and boundaries. And I should have known better.
Yeah, very nice. Any other comments on kind of using that idea of that internal debate?
Sarah has one.
Yeah. Thank you, Judy.
I thought that was a really interesting and important exercise there, because what it reminded me of is actually something we're dealing with here in America, in the United States, is the polarization around free market capitalism, hands-on, less government versus Marxism, and the polarization, and that we need to be able to grapple with that. We need to be able to talk about the benefits of the benefits that there are of capitalism, and a sense of agency, and not being, not learning helplessness on the one hand, but on the other hand, how some people really need help, and how there's a growing gap between the rich and the poor. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think it would be really helpful for adults as well as students to use that exercise.
And Sarah, I think in a way, an exercise like this is, as you say, grappling. I got this story from a book called Why the Sky is Far Away, the Nigerian folktale retold by Mary Joan Gerson. And, when I've done this in schools, I read the story and then we kind of, go down to that moment of decision. But it's a way for, say a third grader, a second grader to grapple with those, fundamental kind of political viewpoints about, when is enough enough, who has a moral responsibility to share or not to share, what is the nature of greed, and all that. Very good. Rachel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, in this case, I accepted what the ending was going to be, so that I knew I was going to push the sky up, but I wanted to make it very clear that I was really listening to both sides, and that I was moved by both sides, that, there was a part of me that really felt for being kind and generous. I had this good nature and I wanted to be that way. But at the same time, I had enough and they didn't listen to my rules. So I hope I made it very clear that I was really moved by both sides and I was giving my attention to both sides.
I think you did. That was lovely. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that when I'm telling stories, often with young people, children, I would use something similar, but not necessarily having told the whole story, but at that decision point before the end of the story, that crux decision. So we have that live debate, two sides, those giving what the character should do this, the other say the character should do that. And then maybe even having a consensus where they come up with an agreed good way forward before they hear the traditional ending.
Yeah, and Judy, before you speak, I just want to say, for those of us who kind of work in this realm, I know David does, Sureka commented that there's also something called, thought tunnel, like the decision alley. And it kind of gets, David, when you talk about like not interrupting, but inserting it within the context of the story, I think, and I'm certainly no expert on this, but it gets to a little of the practice of maybe Augusto Boal and kind of forum theater and playing with what happens within a story or a play. Go ahead, Judy.
I was just going to say two things. One, on the side, they have this, this question, and then I do have a personal question. Yeah. Would these exercises work with large groups or better with smaller group?
Like this particular one, with one person and two voices, if I do it with a larger group, I would have everyone break up into groups, or maybe I have just a trio come up front and do it. But I think, depending on management, depending on the nature of the cohort you're working with, I think it could almost work with any size group. Certainly smaller groups. And David's giving me a thumbs up. I'll take that. I hope that answers it, Nina. Go ahead,
for
Judy.
Myself, what I thought was interesting, because when Rachel talked about her feelings and stuff, and then the ultimate was that the spoiling, that you spoiled them. But in the end, it was a compromise, because it was, I will teach you how to take care of yourself. So that maybe there was this epiphany of understanding that giving without any learning or teaching or helping or building of something, it causes reckless behavior. But if you teach that there is work involved in sustaining yourself, and provide the tools to do that, right? It's not enough to say to the poor, well, you can drag yourself up by your bootstraps, right? That's not enough. If you can provide tools, then there is the opportunity. Because I do think in the United States, there is a real disconnect with the people that have to the people that don't, as though they could instantly do this when the table is already rigged,
Yeah. And Judy, I'll speak for Sarah, I imagine, in saying you've just brought up the whole debate about welfare and whether there should be a work requirement on welfare, and the people who say when you do handouts, it just makes people dependent on the state. And I'm sure depending on what country you're in, you know, you have different debates. I know that, you know, different countries have different social, you know, social welfare networks and so on. Rachel, go ahead. And then we're going to move on to our next story and strategy. Rachel, you're on mute again.
I had two thoughts, and one was that the food that got buried somehow grew into something magical and provided nutrition. And the other thought was that as the sky, perhaps I wanted the woman to say, let me return this food. Can we patch the sky up? Can we do something to put it back or to heal the sky?
Right. That's wonderful, Rachel, that the story ends with the sky is up there, we have to farm. But there's also that, you know, there's almost implied a decision of inaction, that we don't hear the people begging the sky or the people making offerings or whatever. And you're suggesting maybe there's an action that can be taken to try and rectify. And I want to point out that Nageswara said, you know, very creative, ultimately, don't be greedy. Be in limits, think of tomorrow. And with an activity like this, I like to, you know, let it be open, let the students and the participants take it where they will, so that we have a diversity of viewpoints. But you also decide, you know, is the point of this to teach a lesson about greed? And sometimes maybe we want to be less explicit and let the story teach the lesson, or let the activity teach the lesson. But you know, you kind of peg that where you want to. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on, unless someone has one last thing that they want to add. Okay. I'm going to move on to a story that is a Jataka tale that's called Interdependence. And I will apologize up front to all of those of you in India, because I have not necessarily done due diligence with this story. You know, I found it online. There might be things about this story that I am not familiar with. So please just bear with me. And unless I have committed some egregious cultural crime, hopefully we can move forward. But there's a story called Interdependence that talks about a grove where there are trees, and there are 3 trees. The peepal tree, which I see as a sacred fig tree. I know in the last session, Rachna, I think you mentioned it, I don't know if she's still here, and talked about it as the banyan, but it is the biggest and the strongest and the wisest of the trees. And in this grove, or in this clearing, there's also the jamun tree, which is the Java plum, and a tree called the sal tree. And I didn't get too many details, but the sal is also a very sacred tree as well. And that one day the jamun tree was very frustrated because animals would come into this grove and they would leave something behind. And the sal tree just started, or the jamun tree started to complain and say, I'm sick and tired of this. The animals come, they leave this mess. It stinks. The smell is horrible. And the sal tree said, yes, I am sick and tired of it too. I'm going to do something about it. I don't want to have these animals coming and leaving their droppings behind. Next one that comes, I'm going to get rid of them. And the peepal tree, who was the oldest and wisest and strongest, said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. That might not be the wisest thing. We are all interdependent, the animals, the people, the trees. We should probably just, you know, let them do what they need to, because think about it. If you scare away the animals, but the sal tree jumped in and said, I don't care. I am sick and tired of it. So the next time an animal came in, and the conversation stopped there, and a leopard came in. And the sal tree started shaking its branches and shook and scared away the leopard. And the sal tree was like, whoa, this works. And so after that, as animals came in, the sal tree would shake, the jamun tree would shake, the peepal tree sat there and watched, very skeptical of this. But after a while, all the animals knew, do not come. These trees are shaking. There's violence. It could be trouble. So the animals stayed away. And the younger trees noticed this, and they started talking about, wow, now we don't have the droppings. It smells good. The sal tree might be very wise. They didn't say this in front of the peepal tree, but where the peepal tree could hear it. But they said it, and they started to really respect the sal tree. And then one day, a woodcutter came into the forest. Woodcutter came in and saw that the forest was free and clear of all of the animals that had lived there before. The woodcutter looked around, did not see any leopards, did not see any tigers. And so the woodcutter took his axe and chopped down the sal tree first. And that is the story of interdependence. And I'm sure the peepal tree felt very bad and had a feeling of like, I told you so. Okay, so go ahead, Eric, and take me off the spotlight. And so what I'd like to do is to move on to another strategy, and that is monologue, which is a drama strategy, and it is really a form of role play, maybe not this active role play, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint really quickly here and say monologue. So what I'd like you to do, and we're going to take just about 5 minutes here in this room, to write in the character's voice about a decision they made in the story, the reasoning that went into it, other decisions they might have made at that time, how they feel about the decision in retrospect. I put feeling, but you get it. And you can do any of these. These are the roles that I noted. We have the peepal tree, the sacred fig, the jamun, the java plum, the sal, the sacred tree, the leopard, and then a young tree or the woodcutter. Okay, and I'll just leave this up here. And of course, feel free to unmute and ask me a question. Because I can't see you because I'm on the screen share, does anyone have any questions? Or just give me a sure if you get it. Let me get down to this. So if you have something to write with, go ahead and write, choose a character and write how they feel about a decision they made. And again, there are decisions of action and inaction, at the point, as I told the story, the sal tree interrupted the peepal tree and said, I don't care, I'm doing it. And then the peepal tree kind of sat back and let things take their course. Decisions the leopard made to come or not to come, other solutions there might have been to the problem that was identified in the story that the characters did not decide to pursue those. Decision the woodcutter made, and maybe the woodcutter had made decisions before not to come to the grove. And how did the woodcutter make the decision to come this time? And if you don't have something to write with, that's okay. Just think it in your mind. Think of what, in the voice of this character, what would they say? What decision did the character make? And how would they talk about the decision? And it could be in the moment of decision making, or it could be in retrospect after the decision. So maybe you put that process of the multiple voices into a monologue, the character talking, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. I'll be quiet now. But of course, if you have any questions, just come back on. And we'll take, maybe since I've been talking for a minute, we'll take about 4 minutes. Oops. I'll get back to it. And just a reminder, I think y'all know this, but monologue is in the character's voice. So it's first person, me, I, my. And you can go back to that other set of, is the character making decisions based on feelings, based on some kind of a calculation, based on morality and ethics? And is a decision about taking action or not taking action? Is it about what to say or what to do? And how are you all doing? Do you need a lot more time? Do you feel like you're at a good stopping place? Give me a thumbs up if you, I know I said 4 minutes, but Sarah's saying okay, Sweet saying okay. I want to just get a sense of what y'all need. Judy says fine. Well, then I'll tell you what, we'll just, in the interest of time, we'll just jump back in. And I'm wondering, I know I didn't model this for you. I did not actually write one, but I could imagine writing a monologue, for the sal tree, saying, I know I'm supposed to listen to people, but to the peepal tree, he's the oldest and wisest, but sometimes he just doesn't do what needs to be done. And I am sick and tired of this. There is dung all over the place. Our home is an absolute mess. And I'm just going to step forward. I don't care what the consequences are. I just need to have a home that I feel good about. And I'm going to get those leopards and those tigers to go and do their business somewhere else. If they want to come here and play, that's fine. If they want to frolic, that's fine. But all this defecation has just got to stop. Could be a monologue like that. Is there anyone who would like to share what you've written? You know what? I just want to see Sarah. Go ahead. And thank you, Judy. I just also want to encourage other people that we haven't heard from as much.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
So the animals, I'm the people tree. The animals should be given due process when they arrive at our grove. Their needs should be taken into account. There is more than enough room for them here. They may need to be educated in the grove rules and given some initial support as they arrive here. For example, Catholic Charities or Lutheran refugee services. Sorry, I had one.
Wonderful. I love that you came from a place of morality and then you switched to like talking about, there's plenty for everyone, there's plenty of room. So that was just kind of a practicality. And then you even got practical in talking about strategies, kind of a third way. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Someone else with a different character? Bruce, go ahead, and then Gustavo.
No, I got my trees a little mixed up. Was the sal tree the one that was cut down?
The sal tree was cut down, and that's also the one who kind of was the instigator, the one.
So I kind of envisioned a monologue where, at the point where the axe was first striking the wood. Oh, please let the axe handle break. Let the woodcutter have a heart attack. Oh, I couldn't have possibly foreseen the consequences of this. Oh.
Nice, wonderful. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, and I guess the monologue ends there for an obvious reason.
Or very shortly thereafter, yes.
Thank you. Gustavo.
And then Sweet.
And then Sweet. And then Manisha.
I can be the leopard. I think I can profit. There is a saying in Spanish that Río revuelto, ganancia de pescadores. That means when everything is all made up, some people can just grab what they want, and then in that moment, and you say the trees are shaking, my fangs, my power. No one will overwhelm me. No one will tell me anything. So I can do anything like I want without anyone checking me. So I can just profit from everything. Is that clear? Or that makes sense?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Swede, do you want to go?
Yep. And I'm also taking the role of the leopard. Rawr. I wanted to poop at the sal tree, but that sal tree is so rude and violent. I won't poop here. I'll go somewhere else. I like to go to a place where I'm appreciated. Don't they know that I'm the good fertilizer for them? Ha! I'll go somewhere else.
Nice. And that was in the moment of like the sal tree shaking. Wonderful. And then we said Manisha.
Yeah. I would like to take the role of a young tree. Oh, I don't understand, why do these adults are always so confusing? I mean, the sal tree says that it's frustrated and the place should be clean, while the people tree, that grandpa tree, he says that it's fine and we have to be patient. Oh, this is so difficult for a young tree like me to understand and take a decision. I don't understand. What should I do? Yeah, that's
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, applause to everyone. So that's terrific. Thank you all very much. Any comments about that idea of using monologue, of having everyone just take some time to write from a character viewpoint, identifying a lot of different characters and letting them write about the decision during, before, after? Any thoughts or questions or observations?
With this exercise, do you have them try different monologues? Like, in other words, not just select one, but maybe select one that's on the opposite side so that they would have a different learning out of it?
You mean the same child doing a couple
Yeah,
of
the
different
same
monologues?
child. So in other words, sometimes I do exercises where I'll say, okay, this is what, go for it. And then they go for it. And then I say, now, what about if you were on the other side? Because it forces the mind, because the mind will tend to take the character they identify with. Whereas when you switch it, it expands.
Yeah, I have not done that. I do use some other drama structures, integration structures for something like that, to have students do multiple viewpoints from a story, but I wouldn't necessarily do that, excuse me, with monologue, but I could see doing that. I was going to say something else, but I lost it. No.
Okay.
Any other thoughts about this? But thanks for that question, Judy. Oh, and I wanted to just get to, yeah, why is the woodcutter cutting a sacred tree? Did he adhere to a different system? Wonderful. And David has I just want to get back to Sareka put in a comment about activities like this make the student get into the shoes of the character. The learning is across levels and disciplines, which is true. It can be at many different levels and disciplines. And David, I'm just going to read yours. There's your monologue. Now the forest is clear of wild and dangerous animals. I can finally enter without fear. Not only will I cut down the sal tree, here I can take more trees than my family needs. Before I took just enough, but now I can trade the timber I gather for other goods. I can buy pretty items, and I'm not going to read on, but a lovely, lovely, fleshed out character for the woodcutter, who, as you said before, just comes in, chops down a tree, but then we think, and he's not all wonderful, right? He's taking more than he needs. Yeah. And Vina said there was initial hesitation to sit on the hot seat, but now children will get comfort level, practice many times, and they'll have fun and dive into the roles. And with a lot of these activities, as I think I've felt here in this room, that as we get used to them, the comfort level drops. Part of it is establishing the norm that there are not necessarily right or wrong answers, that what you come up with, is fine. And I think Rachel expressed that before of, oh, I could have said it differently. I could have done, but it's like we validate what you come up with. I'm going to move on because this is the last workshop. Eric sent me a note saying that if we go over, and we did start a little late, if we go over, that's okay. So just to let you know, we are going to go over a little bit, even though Eric, I saw you give a big yawn before, a well-earned yawn, and I know it's getting late there, but we're going to just try one more. And that is a story from Nicaragua called Los Cazadores Invisibles, or the Invisible Hunters, and one more strategy that kind of brings it all together. And this is a story that tells us that once there were three brothers that lived in the town of Ulwas along the Coco River in northern Nicaragua among the Mosquito people, and that they would go out hunting with their bows and arrows for the wild pig, the wari. And they would just use their bows and arrows, and they would, chase the pigs, and the pigs would run away. And then one day they were out in the woods and they heard a voice, and the voice said, "Dar, dar." And in Spanish, dar means to give. And I'm not sure if that is intentional in the story or not, because of course the story comes from the Mosquito people, who are not necessarily Spanish speakers. And I haven't been able to get an answer to that. So we'll just leave it as dar. And they looked up and they saw a vine, and they could tell that the voice was coming from the vine. And they reached out and they grabbed the vine, and suddenly they were invisible. And like one of the brothers said, "Where'd you go?" And so he put the vine back. And they said, what is going on here? What is this magic? And the vine spoke, said, "I am the vine, I am the dar. When you hold me, you will be invisible. You may use me in your hunting if it will help you to provide for your people. But you must promise me two things. One is that you will never sell the meat that you get with the dar. You must only give it away. And 2, that you must only use your bows and arrows to hunt the dar, and your spears, you must never use anything else. And so the brothers, they agreed, and so they took the dar, and they came back to, and then when they were done hunting, many wari, they put the vine, the dar, back up on that branch, and they came back overloaded, burdened with wari, and the whole community came out to celebrate. And the elders pulled them aside and said, "What did you do today? How did you get all of this bounty?" And they explained about the dar, and they explained about the promise they had made. And the elders said, "Well, very good. You must keep your promise. You must never sell the wari, and you must always use your spears and your bows and arrows." Well, they had great success hunting the wari, and they shared it with their village and with other villages. And soon word got out that there were these hunters who had great success with hunting the wari. And so some traders from across the sea came up the river, and they came and talked to the men. And they said to the men, you have this bounty. Why are you just giving it away when you can sell it? And the men said, "Well, no, we can't sell it." And they said, "But look at what we have." And they showed fine fabrics and gold and other things. And the brothers talked to each other. And one of the brothers said, "But we have all this food. We might as well sell it. These hunters or these traders have wonderful things that we've never had before." And they argued back and forth, but they decided to sell it. And one of the brothers, had said, but remember the promise we made to the dar. This is not good. There will be consequences. But the brother said, "Well, let's just sell a little bit." So they sold a little bit, and they got some fine things. But the next day when they went to hunt, the dar was there. They took it. They became invisible. They hunted more. So the first brother said, "You see, it was not a big thing. We can sell little things here and there." And so they got in the habit of selling the wari, the meat. And so soon they were selling the meat and not necessarily giving it to their people. And the people would say, "Why aren't you giving it to us?" And they said, "Well, we can make money selling it. We can get things. So if you want some, you can buy it." And some of their people were actually hungry. And then the traders came back and said, "You are fools hunting with your bows and arrows. We have guns that we're happy to sell you for the meat. And with these guns, you don't even have to get close. You can get to the wari you can get the wari from much farther away." And again, the brothers debated, and the older brother said, "But look, we were told not to sell the wari, but we've been selling it, and there have not been any repercussions. Let us buy these guns." And the other brother said, "No, we mustn't. We made the promise." But they bought the guns, and they used the guns, and they were hunting with the guns and bringing more and more wari and selling it to the traders, and more traders came and selling it to other villages until the day they went out to the forest and they got the dar, and they hunted, and they had a big stick hanging with wari. But when they put the dar back, they did not become visible again, because of course, I know I might not have said this, when they put the dar back, they would become visible. And so that day, coming back into the town of Ulwas, could be seen a big stick with wari hanging down, as if magically flying through the air. And the people came out and were amazed and said, "What is this? What's going on?" And the brothers said, "It is us. It is us. We came back, but we had this dar that made us invisible, but now it didn't make us visible again." And the elders pulled them aside and said, "What did you do? You broke the promises. You stopped giving to the people as you promised you would. You started using the guns. You became greedy. You became taking practices that are not the practices of our people. Leave our village and do not come back." And so the three brothers went wandering out into the forest. The dar was no longer there where they thought it would be. And that is why to this day they say in the forest along the Coco River in northern Nicaragua that you might hear the voices of the brothers in the forest calling "Dar, Dar, Dar," trying to find that magical vine and be visible again. So that is the story of the dar and of the invisible hunters. Thank you. Kind of in a rough telling, but you get the idea. So what I'd like to do now is to do a community process. Our last one is community intervention. Okay. And I would like for maybe someone to volunteer, and maybe someone who hasn't had a chance before, someone to volunteer to be the youngest brother. Nageswara, would you do it? And were you able to hear the story? Did you track the story?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you are the youngest brother and you are coming back to community. asking to be allowed back into the community. You are the brother who argued and debated with your two brothers, or certainly with your oldest brother, saying we should keep our promise. Everyone else, I would like you to think about becoming a member of this community. You might be someone who lost someone to hunger. You might be one of the elders. You might be a farmer. You might be a child. So take on a role in this community. You might be a craftsperson who fashions clothing, or you might be a builder who builds the houses for our community. We haven't talked about a lot of background for this story, but clearly a fairly simple lifestyle of the people living in the jungles of northern Nicaragua. But we're going to all be different people. And we're going to start this, and this is something we're going to have to manage in terms of not all speaking at once. Okay, and why don't we just say for those purposes that I will be an elder in the community. Judy, you can be my assistant, so you can maybe help to look on the second page to look if there are hands up. And we'll start with Nagaswara coming to the community, being the youngest son, begging us to let him back in, that he's tired of walking through the woods searching for this Dar to make him visible again, and that he will do everything he can to be a good member of this community, even though he is invisible. And then if you have something to say, you may raise your hand, and then if you do, identify yourself. Maybe you are a member of the brothers' families, of the brother's family. Maybe you are the mother to these three brothers. Maybe you are his wife or his son, okay? And of course, if you don't understand or you're not sure, just listen and watch. Nagaswara, get us started.
Yes.
Wait, I see something moving, but it's one of those invisible hunters. Are you there, invisible hunter?
Yes.
Yes. And are you the oldest, the middle, or the youngest?
Youngest. I am the youngest.
And why are you here? We have told you are not welcome here in Ulwas anymore.
I want some food.
You want what?
I want some food.
You want some food? Well, the food is for us. Now our people go out and they hunt for the Wari as they did all along. And you are not a member of this community anymore.
Yeah.
Do you want to be welcomed back into this community?
Yeah, if you allow me, definitely I want to be in that.
Wait, friends, people in the community, we have this youngest brother coming back and he wants us to welcome him back in. What do you think? Does anyone have a thought about whether or not we should welcome him?
In the chat, it says you should not have broken your promise, young one.
Definitely, I don't break my promise.
What did you say, young one?
I will stand by my words. I will not break the promise.
Who broke the promise?
Somebody else.
Was it your brother, your older brother?
Yes, all my elder brother, one of them.
Anyone else?
Oh, wait.
Yes. David, who are you?
This is my son. And he was the one who tried to persuade my older children not to take this course of action. Forgive him, allow him to eat. Will you not eat with us?
Oh, youngest son, you cannot find any food in the forest. Is that right?
Yes. I didn't find it anywhere. I'm hungry, too hungry. I'm about to die.
Are you his mother or his father?
Come. I'm the parents. Come with us. Come with us. We will feed you in our home.
What do we have to say to this parent?
Can we be the wine as well, or should we be only part of the community?
We are people in the community. But thank you, Shukrita. Manisha, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll come back to you, Shukrita.
Yeah, I was going to be the community member. Oh, no. I don't think so. We should allow him in the community,
And what do you do in our community?
I am a potter. I bake pots.
And
I remember, although this young boy, he was trying to persuade his brothers, but still he did not take his stand enough. I don't think so. We should encourage him. No, I am completely against.
You're right. He tried to persuade them, but he still took the Dar and became invisible.
Yes.
It's his own actions. Yes, Shukrita, who are you? And what do you have to say?
I'm a wise old woman of the community. And I want to say to the parent, how did you raise children like this, who break promises and who are so greedy? And what kind of sons have you raised? This is very sad, and it's a bad example to our children of our community.
Oh, wise woman, don't you have children yourself? Some children go astray, especially when they're older teenagers. But this youngest of mine has a good heart, don't you, my son?
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a good heart, youngest son?
Yes, I changed my behavior now.
Yes.
I do have a heart. I have to change it one day. I cannot break the promise all along.
Okay, Ramya, who are you and what do you have to say?
I am his wife. I was tired of him anyways. I'm glad he's invisible now and don't bring him back. I will find somebody else in this community. There's so many handsome people. Now I can't even see him. What use is he anyways?
I have to jump in here because Ramya, the man's wife, let's be honest, you have been seen cavorting. You have been seen cavorting with
Yes.
the town tailor.
Many times.
So what was that again? Sorry?
Yes,
can't hear you
I see
properly.
Gustavo. Gustavo, turn your microphone on because she has been cavorting with you. You are the town tailor with those beautiful fabrics behind you.
Well.
Oh, yes, that's true. It's true. It's
Okay,
true.
we're gonna.
I can say anything for myself. I can't. I'm to blame. I'm to blame.
You are to blame.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm to blame. I'm to blame. Just
Okay, we're gonna stop it there in the interest of time. Please give
It's
us
my
all.
mistake. It's not my parents' mistake. It's me. It's my friends. It's my community who have changed me. I became like this.
Sorry.
Kindly excuse me. Please allow me to your family. Please.
Thank
do
you,
so.
Nagaswara.
Come indeed, my
Thank
son.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please forgive me.
We are going to stop it there. And just one more thing I would like to share, and we'll have a little time to kind of talk about that and other things, but I would like to just go on that I think if you want to do this kind of, role play with a story, it's good to find a story that has human dimensions with interpersonal interactions. So whether it's animals or trees or whatever, it's the moment to moment kind of decision making that people make that work well, high stakes decisions. I think in some of our stories, even though in the Sabbath Kaftan, it's not a real high stakes decision, but actually, in the context of the story, the Kaftan, which is brand new, but certainly in Why the Sun is Far Away, a big decision. Are you going to disrupt the whole community by breaking the law? Interdependence as well, making a decision that that disrupts the system and not listening to the person in power. I would say that, some of the folk tales that we use are kind of pattern or formula stories, where a pattern is established and it just continues. Those might not work as well because the decisions are kind of rote. Also, a longer story that is very complex might be a little harder to then go back into and look at decisions, or to stop along the way and think about decisions if there are a lot of elements to it. And I think it can be done even with simple fables, with Aesop's fables, or certainly Jataka tales, creation myths. Those might get a little larger, but if there's a human dimension to them, tall tales, hero tales, trickster tales, and so on. I am going to, if I remember, I am actually going to put a PDF of this PowerPoint in the chat, if I can do that. And let's just give a few minutes if anyone has any comments or questions about this workshop at all. So let me just do with my screens and go ahead if you have any comments or questions. Anyone? I see in the chat, it was wonderful, funny, wise, and deep. Thank you very much, Moira. Healthy, hearty, fun. And, I'm an actor, and we actors, we play. Play is about fun. So I really try to make sure that we have fun in what we're doing. Any questions?
Barry, can I just say, you're right. I think we have some things in common. We both, am I right to imagine that you came into storytelling through theatre,
totally,
and education, and I think there's such incredible riches that you've shared with us in this very, very short period of time. You packed so much in, and these are things that can be explored will take time to invest, to explore with learners that we work with, particularly in workshops. I love this workshop. It's been I've just learned so much, and I want to just appreciate what you've shared with us, and thank you for your generosity, and thank you for sharing the slides with us as well. That's really generous of you.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate that.
I'd like to say something. Likewise, yeah, I did learn a lot. I just have a question to ask. If there were situations where there are sensitivities, or where certain students, I can see that it really can open up the discussion and listening to different perspectives, and it's really a way of learning without having to force certain views upon anyone, but just learning to listen and explore. But I'm just wondering, are there certain situations where there are sensitivities or students that you've met who don't take this too well?
That's a wonderful question. Certainly, depending on the content, the topic that you're dealing with, I certainly, because I do go into classrooms where I'm a visitor, I certainly defer to my teacher partner in terms of knowing, if there might be sensitivities to situations like this. One of the benefits of doing improvisation is that the students bring what they bring, and so they know what their limits are generally. Sometimes I'm trying to think of I will try to put up guard rails if I feel it going into a difficult realm. I will pull back on it, because this should not become therapy at all. And I try to keep it light and friendly, and in the context of the story, especially, that's the power of stories, as we all know, is it allows us to explore issues, to explore feelings, to explore decisions at a remove, at arm's length. We're looking at characters doing things. I hope that answers the question, Sui. And I don't know, I know David and Sarika, I know you are practitioners in this as well, and there might be others, if you have any insights on that. And then Aparna will come to you in a second. David or Sarika, anything to add to that? Okay.
Well, you said you in an educational context, you would be careful to steer away from going into a therapeutic approach. But we could also say in a therapeutic context, these activities can be used beautifully as well. So I think it's all about context, isn't it?
Yes, and knowing your participants, knowing the community that you're involved in. Of course, that affects what you choose. Do you do a full group activity? Do you do a partnered activity? Do you do small groups? We'll go to Aparna, and then Shukrita, and then Judy. Oh, and then Sarah. Go ahead, Aparna.
Hey, Barry, thank you for a wonderful, wonderful workshop. And, I must say that I did the workshop on sustainability. A lot of these stories have a great place in the sustainable world. So, yeah.
Yes, yes. Definitely.
So,
yes.
As a question, I was just wondering, in the methods that you asked, it looks like you tell the story and then you get on to an activity, yes?
Oftentimes, but as David said, sometimes we interrupt, or we pause the story and process within.
The question I had was, some of these stories, some of them are counterproductive to certain skills. For example, the Nigerian folktale is about how the sky moved away. Whereas, the obvious thing is, wasn't there any compassion? Wasn't there any collaboration? Did the sky not want to share anymore? Should you stop sharing just because somebody breaks a rule, for example? So if they're counterproductive, then, and the story is really final, isn't it? In the sense that, you've taken the story to its end, then how do you, no matter what they engage in as a debate, at the end of the day, the story is the story. That's how it concluded. So how do you really address that? I hope you got the question.
Well, it's a wonderful question, but when we think about it, anytime there's conflict in a story, in a drama, in a story, we are going to have that tension, and that there is going to be a side represented. And even if the story ends up on that side that is not the side of sharing and generosity and caring, as in that story, we can still process it afterwards. But it ultimately gets down to some really existential stuff, that we live in a world where we're not given food. We have to work for our food. And then we might get to the sense of, well, where does this story come from? And the nature of folklore and the nature of people in a pre-industrial, pre-technological world, using folklore to explain the world around them. And I think this might be an example of the Bini people explaining why the sky is far away and why we have to work for our food. And and it could then go into even a religious context. Why do the deities not just provide us food? Why do they make us work for it? So I understand the question, but in some ways it gets to the basic nature of our reality that we're exploring through our folklore. I hope that answers, but we're going to go on Shakrita.
Yeah, Barry, I was just curious to know that what if, in terms of age group, what if we had the characters from, a mixed age group? So, people understand perspectives of like suppose you have the same character play, like a teenager playing a character, and the same character is played by somebody who's in their 30s, and also somebody maybe who's in their 50s or something. Would that give like a nice sort of like a perspective to each one, how they perceive the same role in some sense?
Yeah, it could, and it might also show, do we interpret things based on our age, or maybe not,
Right.
But yeah, I could see that. I could see, like, in the hot seat, if we get different people to come up and do the hot seat, we get all different viewpoints. Of course, younger students, they tend to kind of replicate what they've been given, but part of this is to encourage divergent thinking and to validate that you said something different from what she said. You came with a different viewpoint. I loved it when Ramya came in and said, get rid of him. I don't want him, and we all just took delight in that because we expected the wife to say, I need my husband, my children, and she was like, I'm done with him. That's great. So, getting back to it, we celebrate the different viewpoints, through the drama.
Yes.
And it gets back to what we do as actors. And I'm sure David and others would validate this, that it's why, you have a play by Shakespeare, King Lear, and yet every different actor plays it a different way, because that's where the artistry is. We make artistic choices. We're going to go to Judy and then to Sarah, and then we're going to stop there because Eric needs to get to sleep at some point tonight. No, he doesn't. Okay, go ahead, Judy.
I was just going to say, have you, with these exercises, do you have it where they do the process, right? They listen to all these different things, because I'm sure you do different, like the monologue in the workshop, you get through all of these different things. Do they then go and have an assignment where they are to take something and on their own see if they can come up with one of those techniques and go with it, and then have the teacher, because I don't know whether you do like series workshops where it's over a period of a month, or it's one-offs, or
I tend to do one-offs, but actually, Judy, this is not something I would do in a class. I would not go through and do 3 or 4 strategies. I would just use one with a class. What I might do is, if we have done, say, the 2 voices coming at the character, and maybe everyone's had a chance to do that in small groups, I might say, okay, take what you did with your group, and maybe something was said in your group and you had a different idea that didn't come up, and now go and write a monologue as the character, incorporating the ideas. Often I'll do writing activities as follow-up to interactive drama activities. So that monologue, but I probably would not with a class say, let's do the hot seat and now let's do this. To be honest, I only do that if I'm doing activities that integrate drama with math, which is kind of a whole different thing, because we become numbers, and because I want people to be limber with number concepts, we might do a series of things. But generally, I would just do one of these activities, maybe a writing prompt afterwards, so that they have a chance, because writing tends to be reflection, and because the acting activity, the drama, the role play, tends to serve as a pre-writing activity. It's kind of a rehearsal. So rather than, I had you write just a monologue from, just choose a character, write a monologue. But instead, since you had a chance to kind of voice some things, that would become a pre-writing. So you have stuff that you can write in your monologue. I hope that answers it.
Yeah,
we're going to go
it
on.
does. Thank you.
David, I am going to give you the last word, but nobody else raise your hand, please. Thank you. Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm very curious if you work with historical interpreters, and specifically, I'm thinking about this festival that's coming up June 9th through the 18th, actually near both of us. I live in South Carolina. It's called Greenville Chautauqua. where History Comes Alive Festival, and they have costumed interpreters. I would love to see you doing that with people like that. I'm wondering if you've already done it somewhere, or
I'm not familiar with that. I do some programs where I become, historical characters. And so that's something I certainly do. Where are you in South Carolina, Sarah?
So I'm between Columbia and Augusta. I'm out in the country, peach farming country.
What town?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Between Leesville and Gilbert. It's Leesville. Yeah.
If you're comfortable, would you shoot me your email in the chat?
I sure will. Yeah.
Okay. And last word, David.
I just wanted to elucidate on what you were saying, Barry, in response to Judy's question. I think as a storyteller going into a school, into a class, typically we might do one of these activities. But my background is I'm a teacher trainer, and also until recently I was a full-time teacher, and so I'm teaching English as a foreign language, and with my students we would be doing these kinds of activities over a course of study, so over maybe 3 months or 6 months. And as these, and the beautiful thing there is, of course, students become used to this kind of activity. They grow in this activity. They become rich storytellers. They thrive on each other's creativity. They learn so much from each other's interpretations, and a real evolving community of story sharers grows. And it's wonderful to go in and bring that moment of beauty into a class. But if any of you have an opportunity to work with people over a period of time, whether it's a drama club or a storytelling club or whatever, with young people or older people, using these kinds of activities that Barry's introduced us to today, wow, it's amazing what we discover about ourselves and each other, isn't it, Barry?
I think so. I mean, I love it. I really enjoy it. Thank you all. Thank you to all who participated. Thanks for all who joined in the chat. I'm just going to look and see if there's anything great. So thank you very much, and tossing it back to you, Eric.
Okay, well, thank you. That was great. I'm gonna stop recording now.